Hi everybody, and thanks for joining our fourth session of the day. We're going to hear a session on how FinancialForce is using Einstein Analytics to aid decision making. Okay, so without any further ado, I will hand over to you, Matt.
Thank you, Manny. Yep, so this is all about how FinancialForce are using Einstein Analytics, and we've used this internally, some of the stuff that I will be showing you to help with decision making. And you can find me on Twitter, but LinkedIn I use a lot more as well. Now, to start off with, who is this guy? Hopefully, some of you are here because you've seen me before, I hope. If you're not, then I suppose it was a bad impression. But I've started going around with the Einstein Analytics stuff with the Data Tribe back in November last year, 2019. And that's when I first got involved with all this stuff. And I just absolutely love it now, all the different user groups. And actually being remote now has made everything a lot easier to get involved with all the different user groups as well. I work at FinancialForce. I've been there for nearly 9 years in November. And I'm a lead product manager for the reporting and analytics. I'm also a Salesforce Einstein Analytics champion as well. And I've also put in there a little bit of fun that I am a woodworker as well. So I'm not just a product manager. I do lots of technical stuff with the Einstein Analytics as well, because that's the benefit of Einstein over platform development, which is that we can play around with this stuff and we can tweak it, and it's good fun. Table of contents. Who am I? Who's FinancialForce? Why do we use Einstein? What have we done with it? How have we done with it? And to follow that theme of questions, we'll have a questions at the end, which is, huh? So that's what we'll go through. Who's FinancialForce? We have over 700 employees. We have over, I think, 1,300 customers as well. And we have a whole suite of products from the accounting to the order procurement stuff, around our billings central offering, our project management against resources and time tracking, our revenue management as well. And of course, our analytics, which we now have from nearly just about every product we've got in there as well. The whole suite, our full ERP of products available there. And I look after the reporting analytics side of things for the product. So why did we start using Einstein at FinancialForce? Firstly, because our system goes across lots of different areas, including finance, we found that we were having some issues with volumes of data when we were reporting on things. I'm sure a lot of us have come along the scenario where you run a Salesforce report and it says CPU timeout, and it's like, oh, so I'm gonna have to refine my filters a little bit more. Einstein doesn't give us those problems. Einstein's volumes are 10 billion records, which just makes us very happy. I'm sure the cost of storing that can be another question, but we've also found with those volumes and the performance it provides as well, if Salesforce reports could run for millions of records, but it took a really long time of like viewing a white screen and then finally run, that would still be an issue for us. But the performance here is just second to none. So we're incredibly happy with that. With Einstein as well, we can also have a look at some of the limitations that we have elsewhere. For example, when building a Salesforce report, when you choose a report type, you have to limit yourself to kind of 3 objects to start off with. You can go into the other areas, but it gets a little bit difficult. Also, it's kind of limitations of the ways things have been designed in the past. So there might be cases where custom objects have been created and they were created a while ago, but if you went back and did it again, you would do it differently. Einstein allows us to bring in that data, transform it if we need to as well, combine it in different ways and make it more reportable as well. Unification is also a very big thing. I'll keep going back to the Salesforce reports because this is where it's so much better and a big change for people as well, which is when you build a Salesforce report and you do new report type, and you have a huge long list of different options and you never know which ones to pick. With Einstein, we've built single data sets that function for a lot of our dashboards so that you just have one place to go to build your dashboard and your reports as well. That is really big for us and a big value for our customers. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is about how we've started to manage this risk, particularly when COVID-19 came about. So I'm sure a lot of us have experienced this, but once COVID started and all the lockdowns happened, it changed our business. There was opportunities we had in pipeline where customers decided to delay it a little bit because they didn't know what was going to happen. Maybe they delayed their payments a little bit, and I'm sure a lot of us have been affected where there have been projects we've been working on, where customers have decided that they're just going to slow down on the consulting work that they're going to ask for and the kind of customizations they're willing to do at this point in time. That affected our business a little bit. So we were like, how can we prepare for this? How can we plan for this? And that's where we started to think about what are the different approaches we could take. So a couple of the approaches we had to think about were, firstly, we could use pick lists on objects. So we could have a pick list on an account record, and you could drop it down to say, you know, what is the risk of this customer at the moment? Are they all in a good place at the moment, or are they a bit risky? We could have done that. That would have been very quick to implement, just putting some pick list values on there. We could easily, because we can choose the pick list values, set best practice options. And of course, a pick list is very easy to use. Downside is we would have to have extra permissions for our users to have people see them. We'd have to have a little bit of training on there as well to let people know that these fields are there and where they are as well. When some of the records that we've got have been extended by lots of custom fields for all this useful reporting information, and sometimes adding an extra field isn't going to be that obvious. We also we would have to do some extra configuration for roll-up. For instance, if we were to mark an opportunity as at risk, then technically the account is also at risk as well, the account for that opportunity. But by marking the opportunity, it's not necessarily going to mark the account straight away as well. So we'd have to do some configuration for the roll-up there. We'd also have no sense of time. We wouldn't know when that value was changed as well. We could do field history tracking, but that's not you'd have to run reports for that kind of thing, and it only stores so much data in the view, and it gets a bit difficult to work with. The other option we looked at was Chatter, and we use Chatter a hell of a lot internally. Benefit is that we don't have to make any changes to platform. We've got better visibility because people are already using Chatter on a lot of the records we're using. Plus, it also provides timestamps as well. Now, the downside is that, again, the same thing with the roll-up. So if you have a Chatter conversation on opportunity about them being at risk, it's not necessarily going to roll up to the account record as well. And of course, if you weren't using Chatter already, it would be harder to adopt. Now, this is the solution we've gone with, which is Chatter. But we tried to get around these limitations of the roll-up using Einstein Analytics and providing the roll-up capability in there as well. So the way we approached this was to set some best practices, which was to use hashtags within our Chatter information. So one thing you may not know, which if you didn't know is going to open up the possibilities, is that you can consume Chatter information within Einstein Analytics. You can get the Chatter feeds in Einstein. And what we chose to do is say that we could have a series of different scales for our tags that we're going to track. So if a user on a particular record, an opportunity, wrote some information and then put hashtag COVID severe, we're going to mark that record and the associated account as severe as well. If we were to mark them as high or orange or level 2, we put a bunch of different options in there. It's going to mark them up. We also took into account fat-fingered users like myself. So if there was they put hashtag COVID and put a spelling mistake, it would tag that as well. So that's the way that we approached it, and we consume that with Einstein. So I'll just show you what we did there, because it's all demo time now. So on an account record, for example, we would come in our environment, and we use this internally. It was used on a daily basis, and we'd put some information in a Chatter post to say this customer looks to be cutting back on services, perhaps related to a project. We'll put hashtag COVID caution. Okay, that information is then consumed into Einstein Analytics. We search through the data flow for specific hashtags and go, right, this hashtag's been used. Let's mark this record plus the associated account as caution. And then we made it reportable within Einstein. So what we've got here is we built a dashboard which allows us to track these different levels and make it clear on these are the different hashtags that we've used and we're searching for within that Chatter text. So we can see from the data that I've got in my environment, we have 6 accounts that are currently at risk, but 8 events. So how can you have 6 accounts and 8 events? You could have multiple opportunities at risk related to a single account, okay? So from those 6 accounts, we've broken it down over here to have a look at the breakdown of the different proportions so we can view our business. And we can also see, related to those accounts, these are the total number of opportunities that relate to those accounts as well. So if we mark one account as a severe risk, then by association, it's going to mark all of the opportunities that are in pipeline related to that account at risk as well. We've also displayed it down here for the individual opportunities marked as well. So different ways of viewing it, okay? It's also the case that if we marked an opportunity, it would mark the account and then mark the other opportunities as well. We're doing some clever stuff in the data flow as we're bringing it in there. Now, of course, this is Einstein, so it's all facetable. So I could have a look at one of those particular accounts, and I can see for the account that's severe here, we've got 2 events, and we can have a look. We can see there's the account information, which is marked as severe. We can see the opportunities over here as well. And we can see this one's marked severe. This one's marked elevated. This one's not marked anything. It's just marked low for the time being. But we could, if we wanted to, because the other ones are marked as well, we could keep an eye on an opportunity, and just using chatter actions, we could come in here, change, use not just the open record functionality, but go in and use the post to chatter action as well. There we go. So I could post a chatter. I could do hashtag COVID level 3, something along those lines, post it to the opportunity. Of course, I would then have to refresh the data flow and the data, but it's going to be updating that data for me and making it so I can work in this single environment. Now, something else that was quite important is not just the ability to filter through faceting, but to have a look at the business as a whole. So we can see that over here, 93% of my opportunities are low risk. Okay. I can also see a breakdown of my opportunities again, but something that was asked for was to see it broken down by quarter. So if I want to have a look at a particular quarter, maybe an upcoming quarter, to have a look at the risk and see how my business might be affected. Okay. Now, we did this not just on opportunities and accounts by consuming that chatter feed. We actually configured it for cases. We had some custom objects as well. Now, when we started to use this internally, we thought it was very useful. It was helping us a lot. So we actually went ahead and packaged it up, and we've put it on the App Exchange so that it's available to everybody for free. I'll put a link in the Slack channel for this. You do not need FinancialForce in order to use this. You don't need any of our stuff. This is completely free to everyone so that it can kind of help you manage your business if you're using Chatter. Now, also through the configuration, when you're going through that with the wizard, some of the things we've said is just to allow you to determine which objects you want to include within that tracking. And not only that, where I had different tags before, and you can see I can include different items, maybe assets and orders from CRM data and the professional services stuff, because I chose that option. We can choose the different chatter tags that we want to use within our business as well. So we've tried to not make this very tied down, but the yeah, we've made this available to everybody for free, even if you don't have FinancialForce. Cool. I will carry on. We'll do some questions at the end. That's the solution that we chose. Oh, I forgot to show. We've also done something which you might think is quite useful in some of your designs. The ability to switch from a view like this to a table view. Sometimes people just want to see raw data. And no matter how lovely the visualization is, I tend to get comments of, great, how can I get a table of this data and just have a look at the raw data? So we actually provide a view to switch between them, which is, of course, facetable between the different items as well. Now, that's one area, and I've shown the tags. That's one area that we've used Einstein to manage risk. Another area is within our professional services product, which is around project risk. I'll look at the questions at the end. And this is all about if you've got a project that's ongoing, and maybe you've got a number of planned hours for that project, then how do you know ahead of time if you're going to exceed those hours? The same if you've got a numerical budget. You know, if you've got a budget of 100,000 for a project, you don't want to know at the very end that you're going to run out of that budget. You want to know ahead of time. So how can we tell people how to do that? We did that with Einstein Analytics, with a dashboard we've built called Project Burn Up, and hopefully this will give you some ideas. So this dashboard we've built in Einstein allows you to pick a particular project, and then what it does is has the KPIs on the left. I remember the data visualization session that was just going. all the comments of what you should and shouldn't do. And I was like, oh gosh, is this dashboard doing anything they've said not to do? And I was like, oh no, it's fine. KPIs on the left. I was like, oh, I was hoping I didn't have to make any quick changes. But we've got our budget information for that project on the left here, including some change requests. We've also got the actual number of hours that have been logged against that project, the actual amount of billings that have been logged against that project, and how much is scheduled to be logged as well. But all this information is kind of still in the past. So what we've done is we've tracked that on this line chart. And in the blue line, we've got our actuals being logged, how much has actually been booked against the project. We've got our scheduled as well, so anything that's been scheduled to be worked on, any assignments in there. And then when we've got no more data, we use the Einstein time series functionality to provide a prediction. And if you've not used the time series functionality, it's really nice and easy. It allows you to have a look at your historical data to produce a trend line. Now, this line can also take into account seasonality. If you're always going to have a big spike in December, for instance, it will take that into account with its prediction. But where we get the value here is we're also logging the budget. So the budget goes in, we get a little bit more budget as well. And then using this, we've done some clever stuff where we're having a look at when the predictive line intersects the budget line to give you an indication of whether or not you will exceed your budget before the project is finished. Okay, if it was going to exceed it before, then what we have over here is our predicted burn through, and it displays the approximate month when that's going to happen. We've made this color indication, conditional formatting, so it changes color depending on the criteria. For instance, if I'm not just looking at billings, maybe I want to look at my planned hours. All is looking good on planned hours where I'm going to exceed my budget long after the project is finished. Okay, so we can have a look at that information beforehand, make decisions early about whether or not you're going to exceed your budget rather than waiting till the end and go, oh, we've exceeded it. You can have a look at your plan that you've got in there to see when it's going to happen. Okay. We also broke down the information below as well so that you can easily see the difference between how much has actually been logged and how much is scheduled to be logged as well. Now, this dashboard we thought was really great, but one thing about Einstein is getting adoption. Okay, so in order to get adoption from your Einstein dashboards, you really need to make sure that it's directly there with the user. Okay, so this particular dashboard, what we've done is we've added some actions. So if we needed, in the case here, maybe we need a little bit more budget so we can go and create that record. We've also had a link to open up the project. Now, because this dashboard is run for a single project, it means that it's perfect for being embedded within a project record. So we've taken that dashboard and we've not just taken that single dashboard, we've restyled it, okay, to be a much more, and hopefully, I'm not the only one that thinks that looks absolutely beautiful within an embedded layout there. I would suggest that if you're going to embed some dashboards, think about the styling. The way we've done it is we have one dashboard that is for use in Analytics Studio, and we have another one that's restyled, and you can see some things have changed. We don't have a picker to select the project because we've already selected the project, and we've refined it a little bit so that that information is directly in the project record. So the best way to get adoption of these kind of dashboards is to embed it within the record itself. So a couple of key things there. Have a look at the embedded approach. Also, have a look at the trend prediction functionality if you've not used that. The way that we've worked with that is we've changed it slightly so that we've also got there an upper bound and lower bound. So that kind of stuff goes within more advanced techniques, but the techniques within Einstein Analytics will provide you with a predictive line going multiple months into the future, as well as a confidence interval as well. So a lot of people always ask me about the confidence interval. The confidence interval is just saying that we think that your billings are going to be within this particular range with a 95% confidence interval. There we go. What else have I possibly missed off? When designing your embedded dashboards as well, think about the size. With Analytics Studio, you can assume that they're going to run it for their entire screen. But for this particular dashboard, we expected, because of people's page layouts, that their size is going to be 2/3 of their screen size. So we took that into account when we were designing the dashboard as well. And that's something that really should be thought about. We also found, and I'm sure a lot of you have found this if you're using currencies, that we needed to tell the user which currency is being used, because everything gets converted in Einstein to a single currency as well. There was the demo, and oh, I finished very quickly there. Have we got any questions?
Just one question so far, Matt. Going back to the COVID risk dashboard, Nadia wanted to clarify, when you were talking about marking the account, updating the account, was that in an EA data set, or were you actually writing back to the actual Salesforce account?
Good question. So we do it all within an Einstein Analytics data set. So let me go to the slide I had, which I think I skipped over because I was worried about time, which is that we got the chatter, we consume the chatter feed within Einstein Analytics. Within the Einstein Analytics data flow, we then search for any tags that we've got, okay? If we see a tag that we've got on there, we then mark the record based on the risk of those tags that we know about. And then that is then used to tag the accounts and the opportunities that are related to the record that's been tagged as well. So it's all done within the Einstein Analytics data flow. And I'll give a shout out to Paul Ripley, who internally built this dashboard and the methodology around that as well, which is pretty cool.
Thanks, Matt. I hope that answers your question, Nadia. We do have a bit of time, so perhaps I'll give a minute or so for any other questions to come in. We have a comment from Paul Ripley. Just back in what you said, the risk tracker doesn't write back to the account record, it stores the info in Einstein.
Yes, Paul was the one that built a lot of this. So yeah, very clever dashboard. Oh, I apologize for going through that so quickly. I thought two demos and slides. I was like, oh, I have to rush through this.
Okay, doesn't look like we've got anything else coming in. So if anybody has any further questions, feel free to use the Slack channel to ask those. I'm sure Matt is going to get around to responding. Also, before you rush off, please make sure you fill in the survey so we get some feedback on the session. Remember, there's a chance to win a certification voucher for your next Salesforce exam. So if nobody else has any further questions, we can give you some time back, and thank you very much for joining.
Thanks, guys.
All right, cheers, everybody.